call black everything. Everything black, culture over everything, y'all. We taking it back, black.
You're watching a special edition of Left to Black in collaboration with Frontline Solutions. As we talk about the connection between social movement and the use of social media, we're joined via Skype by Sofia Campos, who's the board chair for United We Dream. We're also joined by Phillip Agnew, who is a founding member of the Dream Defenders. In studio, we're joined by Meredith Clark, who is a doctoral candidate in the journalism department at UNC Chapel Hill, and Micah Gilmer, who is a senior partner at Frontline Solutions, as well as an adjunct professor of the practice in public policy at UNC Chapel Hill. For both Phillip and Sofia, what do you say to people who ask, who told you to do this? You know, there really, even now, isn't a real blueprint for how you effectively use social media. What was it about this generation of activists that saw the potential of a Facebook, of a Twitter, LinkedIn to a lesser extent, MySpace back in the day? What was it about this new technology that just made so much sense for you to utilize the kind of work that you're doing?
So I can say for immigrant youth, it was definitely a need, a desperation, a depression, an isolation. For us, like I mentioned earlier, there is no physical factor that can tell you whether somebody's undocumented. So, and there's a lot of just fear in our communities, obviously, right? So young people began to connect across state lines through anonymous blogs, through anonymous chat rooms, messaging each other and finding out that there were, in fact, other undocumented youth here in this country who were experiencing similar isolating and fearful situations. And so once they began to connect, they began to form a support network, right? And so then it became very organic for them to want to fight together, to want to resist together, to want to support each other, despite all of the hardships that we have to face. And so it really came out of that kind of low point where we had to lean on each other and really fight to survive. And then once we began to do that, we began to thrive and, you know, join forces to fight together legislatively, but also just politically, socially, became a family, really. So it's become a lot more complicated since then, but I would say that that's the simple factor of it. That's why I'm involved. It's for my family and for my chosen family that I've now created through this movement.
I think about here in North Carolina, we have obviously the Moral Monday movement. And I think about figures like Tim Tyson, you know, for instance, my colleague here at Duke. And it's an older guard that's out there. And you know, in conversations I've had with Tyson, you know, very resistant to social media, right? How do you bring that old guard to the space, right? Because part of which is not, we're not asking them to give up what they do or what they've always done. But, you know, Moral Monday would have so much of a visibility, right? As one example, right? If it actually was something that young folks could access, you know,
Right.
via social media. So what do you say to an old guard, Meredith, if you can jump in this also?
Well, I think the Moral Monday campaigns, they're doing a good deal, and they're doing
Right.
what they can. One of the things that I get from them is text messages, and so, you know, not quite as fast as social movements, social media, not quite
About
as
10 years behind the time, but okay.
But okay, at least I know what the protest is going to be on Monday. I know what slogan to be prepared with. I know where we're going to meet, what time we're going to be there. What you need is connectors. You need individuals who are fluent in the language of the old guard and the language of the new. You need people who can make
Right.
that translation and say, here's our slogan, let me truncate it down to 140 characters, tweet it out to people so they know where to find you and where to find the message.
So Meredith,
Right.
you know, if you were to come up with the idea for a digital Highlander, right, to take the Highlander school, right, that whole model that all those folks went through, to do it in a digital context, right? How do you pitch that to Micah, right? To find a foundation, a funder that would go, that's such a great idea.
Well, one of the things I would go with first, you know, funders, they definitely want to save money. You don't want to replicate anything that's being done. So I'm going to speak in financial terms. We can connect all of the people who are doing this good work so you don't have to duplicate. I'm looking for communication technology that helps us find who is doing what and plug them in where they can best use their strengths. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of funding my idea, getting us going.
Phillip, how do we bring younger folks into this particular moment? When I look at both my daughters now, they're 11 and 15, they have a level of sophistication with the technology that quite frankly is frightening, right? That I'm still trying to wrap my head around.
Right.
What they don't have is a level of sophistication in terms of trying to figure out what's good content, what's bad content. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily can piece together all the conversations, right? How do we reproduce, what folks like you and Sofia and so many others have done, so that a younger generation is accessing this technology, not just, to go to Vine, right?
Right, yeah.
Or to create stupid little videos, but also to connect to a social justice movement.
So I think one of the big guiding principles for us in our communications team has been, as Meredith was saying, not to reinvent the wheel. And so we say, listen, and if I was to talk to somebody older, I would say, the Bible says, go ye into the highways and byways. It didn't say how to do it with a flyer, a typewriter, a phone call, or on your timeline. But your duty is to get out there and meet people where they are at. And so for us, if somebody's going to do a Vine, if someone's going to do a silly meme, we want to capture that part of the culture and bring it back to the social justice movement. We don't try to build something new. The most shared graphics, the most shared videos look and feel organic. And people, our generation is an open source generation. And so when you try to control something like that too much, it loses a lot of its feel, it loses a lot of its attractiveness, and it loses a lot of its ability to have wide-ranging impact to people. And so when you're building a communication strategy that has social media reinforcing what's going on the ground, you've got to leave a lot of room for people to feel like they can come in and participate, build this, aggregate this, communicate it with their friends, make it very individual, but also a part of the collective. And you make young people come to the movement by building the movement around young people. We don't have to bring young people to the movement. Movement has to come to young people. And so that's why when I'm talking to people on our communications team, we're not just talking about Twitter. We're talking about Tumblr. We're talking about Vine. I want to get on WorldStar. They've said no to me 3 times. I want to find a way to get wherever people are at and show them, listen, we're not afraid to be in this room, in this space with you, because we have something of value to offer you. And listen, I still listen to the same music as everybody else does. I still watch the same foolish videos as everybody else, but I'm a multifaceted animal. And so are most of the young people who are coming up. And so we've got to appeal to all of that.
And I think the challenge, though, with that, I think you're absolutely right, Phillip, but the challenge with that is that when we engage with folks, we have to engage them where they're at, right? So I coach high school football, and I follow a lot of my players on Twitter. And so when they say something that's politically conscious or that's something about sort of how they're redefining masculinity or anything that I feel like is connected to my work, I want to retweet it, but I always have to look through like their last 10 or 12 tweets prior to that one that I want to retweet, because I don't know always that I want to be associated with everything that they're doing. So I think it's not easy work or simple work, right? It's complicated in terms of how do we engage folks on their own terms, but at the same time protect or sort of do it in a way that aligns with our values as well.
Black lights and booze burn when I record for Watts, and every black like Troy Davis who never had a fair shot. All black everything black, culture over everything, y'all. We taking it back.